Good morning from Cooking with Gerry. We're making a breakfast porridge, and here in the frying pan I have about 1 cup of water and 1 tablespoon of salted butter. It's already boiling and it's ready to be used. So what I am going to do first, here is whole oat flakes. I am going to put some of this in this boiling water. I'm using a frying pan, Teflon coated. It's a little bit easier to stir everything around and the ingredients don't get stuck on the edges of my saucepan, which is stainless steel. So here I am going to put about 4 handfuls of oat flakes. Now the whole oat flake is a little bit better than the milled oat flake, sometimes called instant oats, microwave oats, quick oats, minute oats, because the whole oat flake has more of the fiber still intact. The milled oats, very convenient. Stick it in the microwave with some water and in a minute you have your oatmeal porridge. But because the fiber has been broken up in the milling process where it gets crushed into a powder, the body doesn't get to use that fiber, and the important part of that is it gets quickly converted into sugar. The whole oat flake will also convert into sugar, but much slower because of the fiber. And the fiber is also really good for the gut flora. So that's why, if you can, choose the whole oat flake, and better still would be the oat in its original form, which I think is called a groat, G-R-O-A-T. It takes longer to cook. You might want to soak it overnight in water. That way the cooking process is much less. It can also be found and it's called steel cut oats, which is the groat that has been chopped in half by probably a circular steel blade in the factory. These whole oat flakes are that groat that have passed through usually 2 stainless steel rollers, and it becomes flat. Much quicker to cook, but the original form has been changed. It has been processed, so it's not quite the same nutritional value as the original oat groat. So this cooks fairly quickly. Within 5 minutes it'll be ready. And the other ingredients are right here in the bowl. First, in the bowl I put a small piece of turmeric that I used a knife to chop up. I prefer to chop it in the bowl because turmeric stains and it's much easier to clean this bowl. So I chopped it up into small pieces and then put 1 teaspoon of ground black pepper, because you need that combination, the turmeric with the pepper, to allow the body to better absorb the turmeric. Then I put some locally grown grapes that I had picked off the stem and I had washed. And then I put 1 handful of grated coconut that I also washed, because it's possible they put some kind of flour or powder on the grated coconut when it's at the factory, just to minimize the chance of it sticking together. Same kind of thing they do with grated cheese. So be aware of that when you buy cheese that's already grated from the grocery store. Probably better to buy the brick of cheese and then grate it at home when you're ready to use it. And then I also have a handful of raw peanuts that I soaked overnight in water. And when I woke up, the reason you soak it is to minimize the toxin from the peanut. I think it's called lectin. So minimize that, remove that from the peanut, and help your body to absorb it. This morning I got the idea to add more nuts. So the quick way to allow water to absorb into the nut is to use boiling water. So I put them together. First I rinsed that water from the peanuts. Then I put the peanuts together with the other nuts, which are about 5 cashews, 10 roasted hazelnuts, about 10 almonds, and 3 Brazil nuts. So they went in together into a jar with boiling water, and about 2 hours they were sitting in that boiling water. And so these ingredients don't really have to cook. I'm just going to put them in now because the oat flakes are almost finished. And I like them to heat up a little bit. Makes it nicer to have a warm breakfast. And it's been a while since I gave this information. If you have dried fruit and nuts, I lost my spoon, and seeds in your home, it's much better to put them in the fridge or the freezer so that they can preserve themselves. Because it's a food product, and once it gets removed from the tree, either by falling from the tree naturally or by being picked from the tree, it starts to rot. And it's going to slow the rotting process if it's put in the fridge or the freezer. If you buy one of those large containers of nuts, for example almonds, you buy the 2-kilogram tub, which makes sense because it's cheaper. I would suggest you remove a small quantity, put it in some kind of container. Maybe you have an empty glass jar like this one, and then you can leave this in your cupboard, but put the rest in the fridge or the freezer. And then when you finish that container, fill it up again with the almonds that you have had in the fridge or the freezer. Preserves the product much longer, much better, rather than leaving it outside to continue the rotting process quicker. So that's very helpful, something I learned by reading Dr. Mark Harmon's book, which I've mentioned numerous times. The book is called Food, What the Heck Should I Eat? And I recommend everyone read that book. There's a lot of great information. He's got a lot of really useful YouTube videos. If you'd like to learn from him, please check him out. Mark Harmon, H-A-R-M-A-N. And I've seen also his last name as Hyman, H-Y-M-A-N. So I'm not sure which one it is. So here it's almost done. Heating those other secondary ingredients that we just put in. And one ingredient here, I have some chia seeds. It's also a good idea to soak chia seed overnight, but I didn't. It'll absorb the little bit of water that's still left in my frying pan. With a dry spoon, I will put 1 tablespoon of chia seed. Also with the dried fruit and nuts and seeds, good idea to rinse them before you eat them or cook with them to remove what's known as field dust, which is whatever might collect on the food item between the farm to the store, or maybe first to the processing plant, and then to your home. So always a good idea to wash and rinse, and then the option is to soak overnight. The soaking overnight allows the body to absorb the food item better, as far as I've read from the science. And here I am going to put, no, this is the fine grain. I prefer the coarse grained pink salt. I'll put 2 pinches And that's done. I am going to let it sit for a few minutes just so that the ingredients can absorb the water and so that it can cool off, because right now it's too hot to eat. But let me show you what it looks like. There it is. Tasty, wholesome, nutritious breakfast. Check the camera, good. And adding all these ingredients to the oat flakes makes it a much healthier breakfast, because if you are just having the oatmeal porridge with nothing else, once it enters your stomach, it will very quickly turn into sugar, which will cause problems in the body. And it's one of the things that science is discovering creates disease by eating too much sugar. It's not sugar, but the body sees it as sugar. So much better, first of all, the whole oat flake compared to the milled flakes. And second of all, add something to it that will slow down this conversion into sugar. The grapes have a lot of sugar, but there's also seeds inside, which gives a fairly intense crunch. And all the nuts will provide fat and protein to slow down the conversion into sugar. Same with the chia seeds, same with the butter. And I am going to put an extra virgin oil on top before I serve it into my bowl. So when you're eating any meal, the recommendation is to balance what's sugar and what's not sugar, just to keep your body stable. Too much sugar creates a bit of chaos, creates a bit of an emergency situation inside the body. And if that's done continuously every day, it's going to cause problems like disease, or maybe overweight, or maybe you're tired, maybe you can't sleep well. So if you want to learn a bit more, do an internet search. Insulin and glucagon. They are two hormones released from the pancreas, I think, which is behind the stomach. They get released depending on what you eat, and each of these hormones have very different functions inside the body. Insulin and glucagon, Glucagon. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.